And hi, everybody. We're live. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Casa-Todd, and I'm here for the ISTE Librarians Network, your host for tonight's webinar. We're so excited about this topic and our guest. It's creating a culture of collaboration, strategies for building partnerships with Ellen Stolarski. The ISTE Librarians Network is proud to be hosting free webinars to support librarians everywhere. The ISTE Librarians Network has a mission to promote librarians as leaders and champions of educational technology and digital literacy. Our key mission is to provide a professional learning community where librarians can leverage technology, knowledge, and expertise to improve school library programs, increase access to information, and foster strong teaching and learning environments in a connected world. Tonight's webinar will highlight strategies for building partnerships and create a culture of collaboration. And we're so excited to have Ellen here. Ellen Stolarski is a librarian at a rural school library in Pennsylvania. As a librarian, she works to promote collaboration, technology, a love of reading, and information literacy skills in her school. She has participated in several programs outside of her library, including PSLA's Emerging Leader Program in 2014 and 15, and I Lead USA in 2016. She's also the co-chair of the Pennsylvania Young Readers' Choice Award Committee, a Microsoft Innovative Education expert, and was awarded the ISTE Librarians Network PLN Secondary Award in 2018. Woot! We will be taking questions. If you're watching us live, we'll be taking questions and comments for Ellen in two places. You can open up this webinar in YouTube and use the YouTube live chat in order to communicate with us, or you can use the ISTELib hashtag. That's hashtag ISTELIB, and you can pose your questions or comments there. We will do our best to answer, and certainly if we don't answer tonight, then we will make an effort to make sure we answer within the next week. So again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you, friend.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here because collaboration is one thing that I am absolutely obsessed with. I work in a building where I live on a flexible schedule, and I work with probably the greatest group of teachers. So I'm really excited to share what we've been able to make work, and hopefully you can make that work in your school as well. So I am going to share my screen. And we are going into my slideshow, just making sure we're able to see this. Awesome. So again, my name's Ellen Stolarski. I'm at St. Mary's Area Middle School, and we are a 6 to 8 building with about 500 students. My schedule is totally flexible. The only thing that is concrete in my day is lunch duty. And my teachers are fabulous at trying to make the most of what I can offer them. This year is a different year for me because we actually knocked down my wall, and I now share a room with the STEM classroom. And I have a co-teacher who is super awesome. He lives on a fixed schedule and is a part of the specials rotation. So I always have kids on this half, but I can blend my classes in and different activities in with this space as well. So we have a really fluid relationship and are able to make things work really well. One thing with this, my school is really, really receptive to collaboration. My teachers are so willing to make things happen that they will tag in to take my lunch duty, so that way I can do lessons with them. So we are really, really lucky to have such fabulous teachers. My library is on Twitter and Instagram, but I tend to fall off the wagon and sometimes don't always post all the fabulous things going on because we're too busy just having fun and enjoying the fabulous things. So just where we're going today, we're going to talk about some models for collaboration, some strategies for building collaboration from scratch. When I started at my school 7 years ago, I had a different philosophy than my previous librarian. She had a few group projects that were made up, but we've really been able to make things happen. And then also, if you are a person who has some fabulous projects going on, we'll talk about some strategies for advancing that collaboration. The biggest thing is that what works in my building may not work in yours. My teachers are very receptive to making things work, and they deal with me being basically a borderline stalker. So just kind of keep that in mind and know what your school culture is and know how your teachers are going to respond to everything. So when I first started as a librarian, I was trying to reach my students because obviously our students are our most important patrons. And I went to a training at our intermediate union, and our trainer, Tanya Dinda, basically it was an eye-opening thing that your students are not your only patrons, but your teachers are your most important patrons. Because if you don't get the teachers on board, you can't get the students in the door. Sometimes you can try and work around that and do some creative things during lunch. But if you don't have that teachers buy into your program, it can be really hard to make a collaborative program work. The other thing was, a few years into my teaching career, I read the book Teach Like a Pirate and had the chance to see Dave Burgess present. And he said, do you have any lessons you can sell tickets for? Now, the classroom teachers that listened to this with me were sitting there thinking, well, I have a captive audience. But for us that live on flexible schedules, we realize this is the story of our lives. We are constantly trying to get both our teachers and our students on board and trying to be that person that they want to come in. So if you want to check out this book, it has some fabulous strategies, more so for hooking your students. But it also helps if your teachers know that you're willing to try something big and crazy, that they might be willing to try. Some of these lesson ideas take a lot of energy. It's hard to teach. They say don't teach like a pirate every day because you just don't have the energy to make that happen. But if you put two forces together, you can really make things happen. When we talk about co-teaching, we kind of have to think about 5 different models. And I'm sure if you've ever done any co-teaching with your teachers, you've seen these 5 models. I've kind of starred the 3 that work in my world. This first one, where one teaches and one observes, is really one that you can get a lot of criticism for. But it's one you have to be prepared to defend. And it's one I do all the time, where I'm up in the front of the room teaching about citations or about databases or about a technology tool, and the classroom teacher is just maybe sitting there multitasking, watching behavior, and kind of just off to the side. My teachers are really good about, they know that where to jump into my lessons and help out. They know that they are either doing the legwork before a lesson or after a lesson. As we know, collaboration is something that takes a lot of work. And if we have to do this, we want to make sure that if someone's complaining of, oh, so-and-so just does library lessons so they can sit in the back and grade. No, if they're multitasking, it's because they could basically give my speech because they've listened to me so many times, and they've done a lot of prep work beforehand to figure out how this lesson is best suited to tailor to their needs, or they're doing legwork after the fact in the assessment. The other one is the one teach, one assist, where you've kind of got one person up in the front of the room and one person tagging in every so often. This is one that I've been doing a lot lately because I share a room with my co-teacher, because I can keep an ear off to what he's doing, and we teach the kids of what each teacher's skill set is. So the kids know that I'm a little better at 3D printing than he is, or he's a little better with hand tools than I am. So if the lesson plays out where one of our strengths can shine, I may bounce out from behind my desk and kind of tag in and help out his lesson. And that's been working really well. And then last but not least, well, the other 3, I've never really done a lot with. Parallel teaching is where you divide the class and do the same thing in different situations. That's just not really my style. Station teaching, you've got you're kind of doing different stations. Alternative teaching, I really haven't even dove into, but team teaching is one thing. My English and reading teachers are very big on teaching the kids what each of our skill sets are. So we basically have our lessons down to a script, where if I'm teaching with my 6th grade English teacher, she's going to teach all the grammar and the content and the writing piece. And then when it's research-based, I can tag in. And we can basically, we've kind of got these whole lessons scripted, and the kids know which person's skill sets are better suited to their questions, so they can get the best quality of teacher out of us. So now that we've talked about like what collaboration can look like, let's talk about what to do when your teachers are maybe not on board. And I want to say, make sure that you're understanding that your teachers are not being malicious. All of your teachers are drowning in their own crazy. They are focused on pacing or hitting the right number of skills or the right number of standards. And they don't mean to not collaborate because they just don't think they have time. So basically, step one, focus on what you can control. I mentioned that I have a life sentence of lunch duty. But one year, I decided to celebrate Poem in Your Pocket Day. So I got all the lunch monitors together and said, hey, would you mind if I brought in some poetry? And I just laid poems out on the lunch table with a little sign that said to the kids, if they came up to me and had a conversation with me about their opinion about the poem, they could be entered into a raffle. It wasn't anything super huge, didn't take a lot of effort, but basically each lunch period, the first 5 minutes, the kids were kind of looking at the poem, feeling it out, talking, and they were talking about poetry during their free time. And all the lunch monitors really, really enjoyed it. And it's one thing where we took a few minutes, we emailed all the teachers and said, hey, send us your favorite poem so we can keep adding this. And when we focus on, I can control lunch duty, I can add this little flair, I was able to make something happen. Also, if your teachers are just so focused on, I need to get my content in, I don't think I'm going to get it all in, take some time, reach out to your community connections. I do a lot of work with the Historical Society. We converted our spare room into a museum, which this year we haven't really had a chance to do much with. But we were able to bring them in as speakers. And then once you get them in, figure out how you can get them more involved. Obviously, I bring my public librarian in a lot, but you can only get so much out of a chance where they're speaking to a large group. Some of your kids just don't pay attention in large groups. So we switched our end of year promoting of summer reading to a thing where we talked about, we had her on the morning announcements to give her spiel to the whole school. Then we did a 6th grade scavenger hunt during English and reading classes and brought them into the library and made her one of the scavenger hunt clues where she could just sit down. The kids were given a pre-selected list of questions, and one of their challenges was to talk to the public librarian and have a conversation and make that personal connection. And I know my public librarian told me she saw a few of those kids come back because they felt like they were safe. They felt valued. Same thing, we do a Humane Society fundraiser where we used to bring them in and have them speak to the whole class. But you know, 6th graders, when there's only one cute puppy in the room, they all just want to be touching the puppy. Now we've kind of made it so that way we can have kids, we bring the dogs in for 5 minutes of each of the classes. The kids can have their moment of enjoying the dog, and then we raffle off chances to hang out with the dogs for a full period. So we're still able to raise some money, and the kids get to enjoy the community connection and the fact that they're all adoptable dogs, and I can sit obnoxiously behind the volunteers and say, hey, these dogs need homes. You should ask your family to come visit them and see if you want to give them a home. The other thing is, with our teachers, I know my teachers totally do not respond to mass emails. If they think it's a general to everyone, they probably delete it. So my teachers respond really well when things are personalized, especially with like book recommendations. I try and, especially with this year's learning support classes, my teachers are trying to find books that create those conversations about soft skills and allow them to dive into these discussions of how to behave, how to these social cues while still hitting those literature standards. So if I'm giving those book recommendations to them, like The Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus or Rules, they feel like they're more likely to check it out. Also, when we're talking about things of ways to get your teachers on board, especially when they're obsessed with pacing, I'm all about dorky holidays. There are a ton of literature-based holidays that you can try and celebrate. I'm a big fan of Poem in Your Pocket Day, like we did for this. My elementary librarian does a lot with Dot Day. We also celebrate World Read Aloud Day. But if you take a chance and just tell your teachers, hey, there's this nice holiday coming up that we can try and build a culture of reading. Would you be willing to give me 15 minutes, or would you be willing to give me a class period to do something with this? That may be your in to try and help them see what services you can offer. And also, again, your teachers want to try and share their culture of reading. Every teacher is reading on their own. They may not just be, they're probably just not advertising it. I took these signs and laminated them and said, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so is currently reading. I was shocked what teachers are super on the ball with keeping this up to date. My teachers that I would have thought never would have gone through with this are very stoic and private. We're putting all sorts of great book recommendations out there for my kids. And even if it's a book geared towards adults, the kids are seeing that their teachers are reading for fun. And then last but not least, when you're reaching out to your teachers, keep track of how they respond. Whether you're kind of tracking data through the bit.ly links, or if you're looking at how teachers respond back to emails, or if they tend to forget things if it's sent through emails. Some teachers are really good at email. Other teachers are terrible at email. And that's just the world we live in. If your teachers are terrible at email, if you catch them when they're on their way to lunch, or they're on their way to make a copy, or if they're on their prep, or before school or after school. Or I even had a teacher that was so bad at email that when we needed to communicate, we would send a kid with an index card that had a question, and then we'd put a square for yes and a square for no. And that was really nice, because that way your kids that sometimes need a walk were able to get a walk, but that way we could communicate pretty effectively. But you need to figure out what works for your teachers. The other thing is, when we're talking about these moments, a lot of our teachers are doing some fantastic professional development through Twitter chats, just like we are. And sometimes they may have those moments where they're willing to try something new. You have to be ready to jump on those moments when those teachers are ready to try something new. And maybe that might become a permanent collaboration. The other thing is that I kind of try and keep track of what the kids are doing in all of their different classes, so I can figure out, do I want to ship resources up? If your teachers are doing a project on careers, you might want to point out, send them some links to the Occupational Outlook Handbook, send in some print books, deliver some presents to their rooms for them to borrow, and they might realize what you can do. And then also, when we're thinking about trying to push new things, this is one thing that I used to do debate, and we talked a lot about political capital. So when we talk about politics, we're talking about basically those goodwill moments, those little victories, and those can snowball into a big victory. And especially if you have a difference in opinion with your teachers, which I know we all have at least one or two major difference of opinions with our teachers. You can't come into a teacher's room and tell them that they're doing things wrong. You can't come in and be threatening. But once they're feeling like that they trust you, once they're feeling that they're safe with you, they might be willing to maybe try to adjust a few things to get a little closer to your opinion on things. And that's what political capital is. It's kind of using those little victories. So if you do a cute promotion, like I did Library Lovers Month, and I had my teachers and students put little hearts about why they love their library, and I put them around the school. you had a good program like that, maybe you say to your teachers, hey, I want to try something for World Read Aloud Day. Maybe your teachers are seeing these good things and might be more willing to try. But if they see you as a negative personality, if they see you as a person that's going to be more trouble than it's worth, we're all working way too hard to deal with stressful people in our lives. Our teachers want to, just like our kids want to feel safe and warm and loved, our teachers want to feel safe, warm, and loved and respected. And then also, jumping from that kind of negative, trying to use those positive moments, also don't be afraid to celebrate yourself. There's a lot of different appreciation days. I know I see on Facebook a lot, some people get a little down because National Library Week happens and people may not mention something or they may not know about it. If they don't know about it, they can't wish you Happy Library Month. So even this simple thing with the hearts might be a good thing to try and do, to say, hey, I know you love me. Let's take a moment and show it. Because if you don't celebrate yourself, no one else is going to. And they are vacuuming in my room, so I'm going to walk into my conference room.
Flexibility, right? The hallmark of a library.
Exactly. Yep. So that's going pretty well. So before I jump into topics for expanding collaboration that you have, are there any questions as far as the first few strategies that I've talked about?
I see lots of comments. Susie Hiley also suggested, when you were sharing about people wanting to feel safe or they were busy, that certainly being personal with administrators is very, very important. And there was a question about, okay, so a question from Linda, one of our ISTELib PLN members. Do you save a new book just for that teacher who would love the personal connection?
I'm very careful on if I do that, because some of my teachers, they do the bulk of their reading in the summer just because of the nature of their lives. So what I may do is I'll give them the chance, but I know based on their kind of personal lives that it might be one of, I'll show it, we'll talk about it, I'll get it to you. If you don't need it now, I'll remember to get it to you at the end of May. Especially my speech language teacher and I are really big on this. We do anytime I read a character that has a character with hearing loss, we're trying to make sure I'm representing the own voice's perspective. But the problem is that, especially when it's in terms of a medical issue, I don't want my kids to feel like I'm defining them by their hearing loss. So if I route these books to my speech language teacher, she can have that organic conversation in a safe space without my kids feeling like they're judged.
Right. That's a good point. Thank you. And there are no other questions at the time, so.
Awesome. So now bouncing into, once your teachers are on board, how can you make it better? I am really, really lucky. My teachers, once they realized what I was willing to do, they ran with it. I really have the greatest group of teachers in my building. So one thing that I think was super simple was, if your teachers are using any sort of learning management system, we use Google. So have them add you as a co-teacher. Either that, or other people, you develop a library page that they make sure their teachers are pushing students towards, and make sure everyone's speaking the same language. But again, we've set this groundwork in 6th grade with teaching the students to know what each teacher's expertise is. Now I'm getting emails from my 7th graders with technology issues, knowing that I am their safe person. They know what questions I'm willing and able to ask. So having me as a co-teacher in a Google Classroom is a very easy way for them to reach out without having to send an email, because we know middle schoolers, that's just not a skill that they're confident with yet. Also, make sure you know which one of your teachers want you to hold off on your posting until as long as you are working on a project with them, and then you can go to town in their classroom. Or I have some teachers that basically give me free reign. If I wanted to post something in there every day with a book recommendation, I could. And I actually do that with over Christmas break, I do hashtag book a day, and I use Mac and Via to put ebook recommendations in, and I do one book every day throughout the course of their break. So that way the kids are getting book recommendations pushed towards them. And my teachers are so, like, even though I keep checking in on them, just saying, hey, making sure you're still good with me posting things, they said I can basically do whatever I want in their classrooms because they feel safe and they know that I'm trying to do my best to support them and meet the needs of their students. I know I've mentioned the second bullet point a lot of times. Some of my teachers are really, really good at technology, and I just have to show them something once and they'll go off on their own and do it. And some of them are not. And the kids know that as well. So it's nice for you to be in that space that they know I'm going to route my question and avoid some confusion and not make my teacher feel frustrated. And especially with research, I willingly take on or offer to take on the grading of citations and in-text citations. Some of my teachers take me up on it, and some of them don't, because they value my time and they don't want to stretch me too thin. But I love the fact that we know our kids love to try and pull to see how low they can get the bar pushed, and if they sometimes pretend they forgot things. But I can help be that voice that said, I know what we were capable of in 6th grade. Let's keep this going. And being that unifying voice of saying, you've done this before, you can do it again. Also, don't be afraid. Some collaborations don't involve you being on stage. Our science teacher requested Star Lab, and he is absolutely fantastic at astronomy. We also happen to be teaching Greek myths at that point in English class. So again, these teachers were doing great things, but they just didn't get a chance to communicate. I put the two of them together and said, I'll cover the science class if you two want to teach and go into the bubble together and have a science and English class at the same time. So I feel like sometimes I get these collaborations where I may not get the glamorous part, but our students are benefiting, and that's what matters. With bullet point number 3, in our building, we have a very unique feature. We are one of those 1970s open schoolhouse where we have paper walls. This means it is very easy for us to judge each other, and we're lucky that we try and avoid it because we know what sort of mental spiral it can lead us into. Even though we may have moments where we think, oh, insert name here is not controlling their kids well. I'm trying to take a quiz. This is killing me. But because of that, we all live in these little fish bowls because we can hear everything. And I have I have glass on my door so people can see me. So I live in a fishbowl in 2 ways. And now that I got rid of half my walls, everyone sees me. But my teachers trust that if I have a quiet moment that I'm doing something behind the scenes for them, or I'm doing something to support them. I know our teachers struggle with understanding some of our behind the scenes stuff. And I know in other districts, sometimes you do have teachers who are bean counters who get a little judgmental. If you build that trust for when you have quiet moments, hopefully your teachers are less likely to complain if they see you that one moment that you sit down. And also teach your teachers what you're doing behind the scenes, and what you can offer, so they know if you're sitting down at your desk that it's not that you being lazy. So I talked about the grading of citations, posting online book talks, going into their room and making book talks or celebrating holidays, and also simple library services that they may not realize you have, like interlibrary loan. Right now, I've gotten my teachers to the point that if Access PA or interlibrary loan were cut in my building, there would be an open revolt. My teachers love to try and use that organic moment to, especially with novel studies, to try and steer the kids in the right direction. Last year, one of my teachers said that her kids really, really responded well to Freak the Mighty. They loved the book so much that she came to me and she said, I want to give them a Christmas gift. I want our next novel study to be Max the Mighty because of how they're responding to it. She said, obviously we can't buy the books right now just because of time frame, and we are so crazy tight. It was just such a tight time frame that it was kind of one of those, if this goes well, we'll buy the books, but at least let's see how it goes. So we ILL'd 30 copies of the books, put special notes on the book that said, this is not ours, please treat this as if it's gold, and gave them a pretty solid riot act on, this is not our book, please don't break it. But it was awesome. And I've had that, once that went well once, now a lot of my teachers, if they want to try a new novel study and they're not sure how it's going to go, or they're kind of just going off of the student needs instead of what's easy, you're able to make stuff happen. And also apologies to everyone in Access PA that I am terrible at returning books on time because of that. But at least it's nice that we have those services, and the fact that your teachers know about it, they're willing to make things happen. Also, this is going to sound, and if any of my teachers are listening, please don't judge me, but there are two types of teachers in terms of technology. There are teachers who are from my generation, who are a little younger, that when we were taught technology, we were taught to try and puzzle it through and play with it. There are teachers from an older generation that when they were taught technology, they were taught with manuals and structured, you have to do things in this specific order or else it will break. And that teachers from those second generation sometimes want a hand holder. They want someone to tell them that, I promise this is not going to break. So just like we use these teaching techniques with our kids, I quietly use it with my teachers. So when I'm implementing a new technology tool or a new skill that I want my teachers to try and take on their own, I may show them it or talk to them about it, but the first lesson that I do most of the work. They may tell me what skill that they want to cover, but especially with virtual reality, I'm obsessed with Google Cardboard and trying to find different ways to use VR as a teaching tool. But my teachers, so if you're not using it a lot, it's hard to wrap your mind around and think about how it can be easy. And they're afraid of, if it goes bad, how can I troubleshoot? So I do a we do, you do model, just like we do with our kids. So the first lesson I come in and I am teaching the whole lesson, and the teacher just observes and kind of soaks it in. Especially in trainings, when you teach a new tech tool, teachers may say, this isn't going to work with my kids. But if they see it and they see how their kids respond to it, I watch, especially with virtual reality, I watch how the kids get this sense of wonder, and we can really use the inquiry model and embed it in research and say, here's what we're going to explore. If you want to take it a step farther with your research, here's where we're going. But that first time, the teachers can kind of see, this is something that is good for my kids and is worth me learning. And then the second time, we kind of plan it together and they take on a little bit more of the workload. And even if they're still nervous, we do it a couple more times as a group. And then eventually they're hopefully taking these technologies and doing it on their own, like with Nearpod or some of my virtual reality lessons. It's all about making them feel comfortable and making them feel safe and making sure that they don't feel stupid. Because it's hard especially when you're having to lean on the kids so much because they're more advanced with the technology than you are, or they're just braver and not afraid to push buttons. Another thing that I do at the middle school level is I'm super aware of where my kids are going. I do look at the little bit at the high school level, but I know that there are a good chunk of my kids that are going to the college level. So I look at the American College and Research Library Association's threshold concepts, which all of these align with what we're covering with our ISTE standards, our AASL standards, and a little bit of our PA core standards, not so much. But if I'm trying to make sure that I know that I have a population that's going to go the college route, I need to start laying the foundation so high school can take them to the next level and they aren't feeling lost in college. And so when we're talking about getting my teachers on board to maybe we do an explorer project where we use the website allaboutexplorers.com, have them take a fake article and correct the mistakes. And it's mind-blowing for me to watch the kids realize, oh, the little white box in Google sometimes is wrong. And trying to figure out what's a good source and what's not. And especially some of the birth dates are a little contested and they're trying to figure out what's the better source. When we talk about information creation as a process, we do the research process all the time. Even in STEM, we're doing the design process, trying to understand that you just don't find something and automatically publish it. Also talking about how information can have value, and diving into research as inquiry. I know especially at our level, our kids love exploring their own topics and using that inquiry process and exploring and trying to expand their knowledge is really, at least we're trying to lay some good groundwork down here. With my 8th graders, as far as scholarship as conversation, we've been doing a lot of looking at the citations on Wikipedia, and seeing we can use these as a jumping off point and talking about how when people write research papers that they are talking with each other and they're standing on the shoulders of the giants who came before them. And then also searching as strategic exploration, you're trying to teach our kids that they are not just doing Google, they have to go and be targeted, especially when trying to get my teachers on board with database searching, explaining to my teachers that when we reach out to the colleges, there are professors out there who don't like Google, who want academic sources. This is also when you're reaching out to your community. I know my STEM teacher is super awesome at working with local industry and seeing what our STEM kids need, what skills our kids will need to be successful in the local workforce. So I try and be the other side of that coin. We reached out to a local college and they kind of taught us their research, what they teach their freshman kids. And it's really based on these ACRL concepts. Also, our IU is working on reaching out with more colleges. But I'm sure if you have a local college near you, if you want to have them maybe Skype in or talk to at least you about what they're seeing, what gaps that they're seeing at their level, so you can maybe try and adjust it so your kids don't run into these hiccups, your teachers will value that as well. If you can try and be that relay person of saying, this is what the colleges are seeing, here's how we can make our kids be successful. And before I dive into teacher feedback, are there any questions for the expanding collaboration?
There aren't, but we are running sort of short on time. So we'll just move on to that one for now.
Cool. I just figured I threw this on here. With collaboration, I ask my teachers what they like it from their end, because sometimes I feel a little manipulative trying to get them to do what I want. But I think the biggest thing is make sure your teachers feel safe. I had one teacher tell me that no matter how stupid she feels with technology, she knows it's a judge-free zone. My teachers like seeing that both librarian and the teacher are good, and the fact that we have the flexibility in making these organic moments happen. And trying to, whatever group you're with, trying to make sure they're the most successful that they are. So just a couple things as far as last minute thoughts. Be what your community needs you to be. Make your teachers feel warm, safe, and welcome and respected. Don't be afraid to try. And I love Tracy Chun's quote of "Be brave before perfect." That's been my my mission for the year. So there's kind of some of the reference things I brought up. Any other questions?
No, but I definitely want to thank you so much for especially your positivity. I mean, you certainly have given us a ton of strategies and lots of ideas. I know Linda's in the background taking notes, but the positivity, I think reminding ourselves that this is not a personal thing, that teachers are busy, and to make ourselves available in any way possible. I think that's really an important reminder for us, because that non-judgmental stance is really going to bring us far. So thank you so much for all those goodies, as well as that important reminder. I want to thank Nancy Jo Lambert, who just joined us. Maybe she wants to say hello. And Linda Doherty, who has been on the back channels on YouTube and Twitter. They are both ISTE PLN board members with us. And we have lots of reminders for you all. The first reminder is that tickets for the ISTE PLN breakfast and are on sale now. You just go to the ISTE website if you're attending ISTE. The presenters are Olivia Van Lecce, aka at the Live Bits, and her mom, Cynthia Merrill, and that's the most dynamic duo. It's going to be incredible. We also have a social, I believe, happening on the Monday night. Yes, Nancy Jo? It's on Monday night. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be in combination with a lot of other people as well.
And I don't know. I don't think they have to register for that, for the PLN social, but you do have to have a conference badge. You have to be a registered attendee to the conference to attend the PLN social.
Perfect. Now, I think we're going to have a webinar exclusively about ISTE. So look for that in June, the beginning of June. We're also going to have our next webinar, I believe, is with Jennifer Lagarde in May. Look for that. And you can, of course, find all of this information that I'm sharing on our website, which is librariansnetwork.weebly.com. You can find us on Twitter, the hashtag ISTELib, or the handle ISTELib. And we're also on Facebook, ISTE Librarians Network. I think we're also going to be showcasing the ISTE Librarian Network PLN winners at one of our webinars soon. James Allen and Tiffany Whitehead were the recipients this year. And I think we're still accepting playground applications.
Yes.
So whether or not you're a teacher librarian, if you would like to be part of our very dynamic, very busy, and super fun playground, please check our website for playground applications. Have I missed anything, Nancy? Jo? No?
I don't think so. I'm sorry I was late. I caught the tail end. Ellen, I'm gonna go back and watch the recording, which I will also be emailing out to all of our registrants and posting in the ISTE communities later as well, a link to that. But Ellen, thank you so much. Again, congratulations on winning last year. And then thanks for presenting for us today. I'm NHS advisor for my school, and we currently are inducting tonight. We're inducting over 300 students into our NHS. So I've been crazy all over trying to get ready for our NHS. There's my NHS induction. So
definitely check out the webinar in the archive. It was incredible. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you so much, Ellen. We really appreciate it.
And thanks to everyone who watched. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.